Welcome to the HIV podcast. Each week we focus on a person, historical event or pop culture moment linked to HIV and explore the story of what actually happened. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jess, and between us we've been working in the field of HIV for 40 years. Our aim is to get as many people as possible HIV educated.
Welcome to the HIV podcast.
I know, I'm going to start by apologising for my terrible sound, probably. Yeah, I don't have headphones today. They're finally broken. I've said goodbye to them. So yeah, no headphones today. So it'll probably be slightly more echoey than normal. And Rita is also right in front of me, chomping away at a lick mat.
Lovely.
Yeah, loads of peanut butter. Do you know, when I first got her and she was like, couldn't be left by herself because she'd just scream the house down. So I used to go to yoga before work, it's like 7 a.m. And this was sort of over COVID times, you know, just as you're allowed to start doing stuff. So I'd take her in a little crate, like my friend Chloe ran the class, and I'd take Rita and we'd sit at the back and I'd put her in her crate with a lick mat. And when everyone was like really quiet, like trying to relax, you'd just hear,
oh no.
I'd have to be constantly like, I am so sorry, everyone. That's disgusting. And this like vague smell of peanut butter would fill the relaxing yoga room at like 7 a.m. People were really nice, but I've scared her so much now making that noise that she's run away.
But does she take the mat with her?
Where she's actually gone is to go and take everyone else's mats. So she picks them up and then she brings them back into the bedroom to her little safe space. So she'll be in a minute with Jimbo's that he's done.
Quite smart, isn't she?
She's very clever, to be fair, extremely clever. We also have found that Tony's very clever. He can open the baby gate.
Oh, that is clever.
The other dogs can't, and he has worked out like a little shark. He's watched and watched and watched. I should actually say, not because he's got opposable thumbs, just when we push it to, because sometimes I'm like, it doesn't need to be clicked because they're just dogs. So I'll push it to. No, he gets straight through it. Is that
what are you trying to stop him getting to?
Oh, the conservatory. So we have a baby gate at the conservatory because sometimes if I want to either split the dogs or if I don't know, I'm taking something through the house, or to be honest, the conservatory is also about 10,000 degrees. And it's really, really hot and he's being an idiot and just laying in the conservatory in the sun and I want him to cool down. I'll put him in here to just chill out, and then he's found a way just to ignore me. Have you got any pet related chat?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
I have actually.
Oh, go on.
Gracie brought a little mouse in the other day into the house.
Like a friend? Like brought a friend over for tea?
Back on a Saturday night. So I've just brought this mouse back to harass.
Oh.
She never normally brings them in. She leaves them in the garden, which is absolutely fine by me. And, you know, she's a cat. She's got that kind of hunting instinct in her. But for some reason, she brought this one into the house. I was like, jeez.
Was it alive?
It was.
Oh, God.
But, I mean, it wasn't. Yes, it was. Anyway, luckily, my husband was, I don't know where he was. He was out, probably fishing. Luckily, one of the kids dealt with it. But then, used a breakfast bowl to catch it, put some cardboard underneath, took it out across the road. We kept the cat in. That's her punishment. She can't go out. But now we don't know which breakfast bowl he used. So I've just had to bin all of them.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Do you know what? Am I gross? I'd have just put it in the dishwasher.
What, the mouse?
The breakfast bowl.
Oh, well, no, I was going to bleach it because, and then put it in the dishwasher. Because, you know, mice have got diseases, but I was just like, which bowl did you use? I don't know.
You were like,
right, well, just get rid of all of them then. That's the best
crockery.
Way forward. Yeah, definitely.
I think that's the way. Well, on that note, I do have something sort of HIV related. We had someone. So on Spotify, I hadn't realised there's a thing where it asks people sometimes after they've listened what they thought. And I can go in and see their answers, Sarah. Someone had put like what did they put? Spent too much time talking absolute nonsense. Get to the point. And I thought, isn't that apt today? Isn't that apt?
That's someone who just doesn't realise where we're at. Of course we talk nonsense.
That's half the point of this. And I'm going to point this out. I'm going to try to stop saying, and I have to say, because that is all I ever say. a lot of people have said to us they actually really enjoy the nonsense part, which is why we've continued with nonsense. But conversely, someone had written about the contaminated blood scandal. They said, I thought I knew everything about this, and I have learned so much from this episode. So,
it's worth persevering.
Yeah,
we'll get there in the end.
There are some little gems, and I'm gonna say to the hater, how would we be 4-time national award nominated if it was just all nonsense?
Exactly. What you need to do is send them the unedited version. And that's
no one.
If you're worried about us getting to the point, listen to all of this.
Yeah, no one. Right, what are we doing today? We're doing a bit of denial, aren't we? No, we're not.
Damn.
Just like what I did there.
Such an idiot. Okay, that was probably only funny to me and you, but very well done. Well played.
I only thought of that on the spot. I hadn't even pre-prepared it.
Comedy
no, I didn't.
Okay.
Right, okay, I'm sorry. I'll stop that. I will stop that.
We've got a whole denial theme going on over the next few weeks.
I really wanted to say, no, we haven't.
But we have.
I feel like I'm in a pantomime. Right, denial 2.
So we are. We're looking at denial and what happens when you can't move past that stage in relation to an HIV diagnosis.
Okay.
So we've got some service users that are stuck in that phase. So they won't attend their clinical appointments or they don't take their medication. They do engage with us, though, because we offer excellent client support.
Yeah.
And some of them will actually talk about their diagnosis, but usually them talking about it is to kind of shut us up, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll go to the clinic. Yes, I take my medication, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
And at some time, I mean, I know there'll be people listening going, why wouldn't you take your medication? It's free. It's easy to access. So we're not kind of dissing these people at all. It's complex. It's my answer. It's my get out for everything these days. Oh, it's complex.
But it is. It's so complex. Like, yeah. And there just isn't one singular answer. It's so much deeper than that. And I think I think there are multiple answers. I'm like you. I'm just like, this is massive. Is that the end of the podcast? We're just
that's
like,
it. Yeah, there's the conclusion. No, but I do think we need to point out at some point in everybody's lives, we have been in denial about something. So we can't be judgy about this because we've all done it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just a social smoker. I'm not actually a proper smoker. That used to be mine. Or, my relationship's absolutely fine, even though he's being a dick. That is not mine, if my husband's listening. But those kind of things, when you just don't want to admit to yourself that perhaps a relationship's not going the way you hoped it would, or that you're doing things that are bad for your health, and they're bad for your health, but you do it anyway and justify it. But I'm just doing it because, it's social to do those sort of things.
Yeah. Or even like avoidance. I find myself, that's a big one for me, like avoidance. If I'm scared that I won't be good at something or I won't be able to do it, even though rationally I know I can do that thing, I will almost try to put it off. And I can recognise it within myself and I can't stop it. So I'll do anything else. I will find any reason to do anything. But interestingly, I was reading that with things like that, sort of along putting things off and procrastination can also be, and I wonder if this is part of it only for some, it can also be your brain protecting you from stress. Isn't that funny? That's why we procrastinate. So you feel stressed about something and it's your brain trying actively to sort of help and protect you because you feel stressed. So then you procrastinate. So
definitely. And people do that around all kinds of health issues, don't they?
Absolutely.
Getting tested for STIs, putting off going to the clinic. We've heard of this when people come and test with us, that, they haven't wanted to do it. I think the moment's got to be right. You've got to be in the right headspace to do the things that you don't really want to do. And life's challenging, isn't it? And the world's not that great at the moment. Why would you do things that make you unhappy, even though in the long term, you come out of it the other side going, I was awesome because I did that.
Yes. And I think sometimes things can come at a time in your life when you just feel like, oh my goodness, it's one thing after another. When will this end? And so just to go, I'm just not going to engage in this, sort of shuts it down for some people, doesn't it? That's fine because it's not, you're saying it's not happening. And I'll just move forward like it's not.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to look at why we do those things. Oh, it's going to be like a bit psychology based, I feel.
Love it.
So we have said, and we've already touched on this. So denial is a defense mechanism. in which an individual refuses to recognise or acknowledge objective facts or experiences. And it's often an unconscious process that serves to protect the person from discomfort or anxiety, as you said.
But it's nice to know, because I think quite often with things like this, either denial or procrastination, you start feeling quite shameful, don't you? And, you can say, oh, I'm lazy, or I'm just, I'm just doing all this bad stuff to myself. And actually it's not. It's literally your brain trying to go, oh, no, trying to protect you.
Yeah, yeah. And this is developed from an idea by Anna Freud.
Yeah.
Sigmund Freud's daughter. We've all heard of Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
Very, very famous. Yeah. So she developed the idea about defense mechanisms. So she believed that denial unconsciously protected the ego from discomfort and distress by rejecting aspects of reality. And it's primarily something that's used in childhood and adolescence to protect yourself. So, remember when you were growing up and something embarrassing happened and you locked it away, never, ever to be remembered again. That's why you do it, because you're protecting your ego.
But why then, when you're like, I will be in the most random places. I'll be like having a great time with like, I don't know, my friends, like having some lunch or something like that, or a birthday party. And my brain is just like, ting, remember that time you did that really awful, embarrassing thing? Should we think about that for a while? Why does it do that?
I think that's like anxiety, isn't it? I do think this is more common in women, if I'm honest. I just don't know if a lot of men do this, because I do this too. Or you'll wake up in the middle of the night and your brain will be like, do you remember that time where you had to stand up in front of everyone and you couldn't think of anything to say? And you'll be like, why? That was 20 years ago. We don't need to go back there.
Yeah. I wonder if it's... So my CBT guy, he said that when things get thrown up like that, it's almost like you haven't processed them. So they're misfiled. It's like an error message that keeps going. We need to look at that. Let's sort that out. Why haven't we done anything with that? Because then you can let it go and move on.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh,
yeah,
God.
It is, because at the time you've kind of locked it away, but it's not gone away, has it?
How it is that is, Sarah, sitting down to go, right, over the last 42 years, let's think about all the most hideous things I can think of and deal with them. Like,
yeah, but then I'm like, are they hideous now? It's something that happened 20 years ago. Who cares? What we're going to do, if we're using denial as a defense mechanism, how do we overcome that?
Yeah.
And we said before, counselling or therapy is a good starting point, because it can help outline the underlying reasons why our bodies are doing this.
Yeah.
And a safe space, we talked about this last time, through counselling or therapy is ideal for doing that.
Okay.
However, we both know the biggest challenge is getting someone to agree to counselling, because that in itself means acknowledging that something is amiss. When we have managed to get people to have counselling, I think we've had some really good successes and good engagement, but it can be sporadic. Sometimes it can help, I think, to suggest counselling for everything else they've got going on, but not make it HIV specific.
I think sometimes, if I'm honest, you have to build more of a trusted relationship, and you can't just go at it like you're saying. It's too much to just go, right, we're going to talk about the issue. You almost have to get to it slowly, don't you, and gently.
You do, yeah. And I think sometimes acknowledging that everybody's got a lot on their plate, including the person you're supporting, and saying, maybe counselling might help just to get things in order.
Yeah.
Can be the starting point. It can kind of get them over the threshold.
Yes.
Do you know, I started using that expression and I don't know why. It's like an old-fashioned expression. Who talks about thresholds?
Oh, well, I do in the dog world quite a bit.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, because when your dog, so weirdly, I'm like, no, that's fine. When your dog goes over threshold, that's when it reacts. So it's like trigger stacking. So there can be like lots and lots of different things that happen in a day to Jimbo, and they'll build up and up and up and up and up until he can't cope with the smallest thing and he'll react. Whereas on any other day, if he doesn't have that, he won't go over threshold. So your aim, essentially, Sarah, is to keep your dog under that threshold if they're really active.
Oh, I think I'm using it like the threshold into our centre, like the entrance.
A doorway.
Like, this is our threshold. That's weird.
No, I like it. You can find the threshold here.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it.
No one's going to understand what I'm talking about. I'm just going to have to get that out of my head. Okay, so back to, I see what this person means now. You know, the one that's like, just get to the point.
Yep.
it's crystal clear now that they actually have valid point there. Thanks for that.
Maybe they were actually interested in the content and they were just like, I just can't wade through this. I just cannot.
Whereas we assume the content is just an addition, isn't it? Really, everyone's just here for us wittering on. Okay, so how do we recognise if others are using denial as a defence mechanism? Well, sometimes just from what they tell you, but these are the common signs. Let's see if we could recognise these in our service users. They refuse to talk about the problem. Yeah, well, sat in an HIV charity, that's always a big telltale sign, isn't it? They find ways to justify their behaviour.
That's a big red flag.
Yes. They blame other people or outside forces for causing the problem. That happens quite a lot, doesn't it? They persist in a behaviour despite negative consequences.
Yeah,
this is very true. So we've had service users who won't take their medication, don't believe they have HIV, even when they've been admitted to hospital and they're very poorly.
Yeah.
They promise to address the problem in the future. Yeah, the things I'm in denial about, that definitely counts for me. Everything's in the future. If it's written on a list, that's good enough for me.
That's interesting, isn't it? I mean, yeah, I'm a bit of a list obsessive as well, and so is that it's for me? It's that way of gaining control when things feel messy. But you're right; it's just going in the future. I will, but not now. Like,
no. The last point is they avoid thinking about the problem. I think everybody's very good at doing that at some point in their lives.
Yeah, that's interesting because I thought maybe they might. But I suppose if you're in denial, you are going to avoid thinking about it, aren't you, rather than obsessing over it? Because that's kind of the other end of the spectrum there, isn't it?
Yeah. So for me, I will write it on a list, job done, and then I can forget about it. And then I will put that list in the freezer.
You're like Joey, aren't you?
Yes. I will put a padlock on it, and then we never have to address it again.
Yeah, yeah. As long as it's on a list somewhere.
Yeah. As long as it's written down, you dealt with it.
Yeah,
you're extremely mature. And then you can be like, oh, add other things to the list, and then the list is too long, and you can't address the one thing you're avoiding because the other things take priority. And then before you know it, a whole year's gone past.
But I just like starting new lists. I'm a new list lover. Write a list. Even in the same day, I might write a couple of lists.
Yeah, but I've started writing lists. Then I write a new list. So I write all the new points and then say, see previous list for the points I don't want to move forward, but still need to be done.
Okay. Follow on this.
Yes, Sean, this is how I manage our budget. I know I need to reconcile it, but I will put that on the previous day's list and then we'll put on today's list. Don't forget to check yesterday's list, and it's a wonder our charity is still solvent. There you go.
Although you did teach him how to use OneNote, didn't you?
Oh yeah. Well, I showed it to him. I didn't in any way explain it any further. So that's probably not very helpful to him at all. Sorry,
well,
Sean.
I mean, so is there anything else we can do? Do you tell us how we're going to combat it?
Well, let's look at some more signs. So people, because I do feel that there is a lot of judginess in relation to HIV and people not taking the medication or people coming to terms with their diagnosis. And sometimes people could just feel very hopeless, can't they, about being diagnosed? And they might verbalise that. And this is where it's hard for them because on some level, they know there's a problem that needs addressing, but often they feel almost powerless, like nothing they do or say can make a difference. And that is very often linked to low self-esteem.
And self-stigma, I think.
Yes, definitely. So if you're supporting someone in denial, it can be really, really difficult because you can see how low they are or how little they want to acknowledge what's going on, but you can also see the solution. But because they're in denial, they're going to brush off your concerns or pretend to agree and tell you to mind your own business.
Yeah.
I don't think service users ever told me to mind my own business, but it can appear like they're just brushing you off because you're addressing the one thing that they are not ready to deal with themselves.
But I think we're quite good, and I do think we're quite well skilled at TVPS at recognising when there's going to be that pinch point for someone where it will send them over the edge. And what we really work hard to is not having people disengage. Currently we have a service user who's disengaged for quite a while. They've re-engaged a bit, but they've sort of disengaged because they don't want us to approach a certain issue. So it's like, cool. And we won't for a while, and we'll build some trust back up. And then gently we will see how they feel about approaching those conversations again. Because you're just not going to get anywhere going in like a bull in a china shop and say, we have to address this. We have to. Actually, people don't. They can just disengage completely. And we would so rather people were accessing our service, that they had, even if there is this one elephant in the room that they're not looking at least they're coming and they're seeing people and they're talking to people, and perhaps they're getting support around other issues that they do have. And when the time is right, then we can help support them. It's, it's a hard one.
Yeah, it is. Do you think our service users with low self-esteem, if it's something practical in their life that's causing them a challenge, they will definitely want us to be involved? But if it's something emotional to do with their emotions around their diagnosis, for example, they don't. It's almost like a kind of control thing.
Yeah, I think the control thing's really definitely up there. I think I've certainly seen with some more practical things, I suppose, and I guess this isn't really about denial. I think some people think we might stop supporting them if they tell us the truth. I know you've definitely seen that as well. Do you know what I mean? So I think with the practical end, I do think you're right in your example there. But yeah, I think sometimes when we do see people not wanting support with practical things, that's just because they may have told us a half truth. That doesn't matter to us. We don't care. I'd rather you told me the truth and then we can move forward. We're not going to turn around and be like, well, we can't support you now because you didn't tell me that from the start. Of course not. Let's just see where we're at and move forward. But yes, I do think I can certainly think of some service users who they really pull back with that emotional stuff and like, no, absolutely not. But then would want you to write a letter of support for something else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's complex, isn't it? And I have to say, there is research to show that it is very common after being diagnosed with a long-term illness to refuse to believe that the problem is as serious as it really is. And that is especially true if someone is diagnosed late. So they might instead think, well, I'm going to get over it, or it's just not really that bad. I've heard this before when we've supported people who've been diagnosed late, where they're like, well, it's just, everyone's making a drama out of this. It's just nothing.
But again, no, what I will say, I think there is mixed messaging within the world.
Right.
No, there is, isn't there? So on the one hand, of course, you equals you, and you can't pass HIV on. All of that is brilliant, and so half the time we sort of push that narrative, don't we? So then why wouldn't somebody, when they were diagnosed, go, well, it's fine, isn't it? Just going to take this for a bit, and that'll be all right. So it's almost like where. That I would find that confusing and complicated, that it is serious, but in the 80s it was really serious, and I still remember the adverts. But now it's like we're making out that, no, it's not, because we've got all these things over here. That's a very confusing landscape to try and navigate.
It is. Yes. No, I would agree with you, actually. Yeah. So on one hand, you're saying to someone, well, you've been in ICU for a week with pneumonia, so this is quite serious, and we need you to kind of take this medication so that you can get better. Yeah. Until the point where you can't pass it on. For some people, I'm sure they think, well, if I can't pass it on, I don't have it. So,
I do think there's, real confusion around that, and trying to really be like, no, let's talk about that more.
Definitely. Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? And you don't want to be, the drama queen that scares everybody. But equally, you don't want to go with them when they're playing it down too much. It's a fine line. Oh, we have to be very skilled, Jess, in our support.
Fine line.
And as we said, this denial, this going, well, this isn't actually that bad. I can get over it. I'm already getting better. That can interfere with treatment, because if it's not tangible, isn't it? You can't see HIV. So for some people taking the medication, it's like, well, I feel fine now. What's the point? Yeah. Right, so I'll just get on with my day-to-day life. I don't want a daily reminder that I've got it.
Is it like, so when someone starts taking antidepressants and you're told, aren't you, like, oh my God, you mustn't come off them too soon. I've seen so many people who go, oh, I feel better now, so I've just stopped them.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think that's the point. I think, isn't that why perhaps, not saying for everyone, but is that perhaps why you feel better? And so now you're like, yeah, no, I'm just going to stop them. And you're like, oh, talk to your clinician about that.
It's true though, isn't it? Like when we were issued antibiotics, you issued them because they're going to make you feel better. And I know a lot of people, when they start to feel better, go, well, I don't need to finish the course now because I feel great. It's that same kind of psychology, isn't it? That,
absolutely.
you know, if you're feeling well and you're working and you're going about your day-to-day life, why do you need to take this medication?
Yeah.
Why do you need to see the doctor? I've heard it so many times from people when they're like, well, there's nothing wrong with me. And that's difficult to get your head around, I think. There are other conditions like this, aren't there? There are health conditions. There must be where you don't, or maybe, I don't know. Don't know where I'm going with this, Jess. I want you to name all the conditions where you have them, but you don't actually have any symptoms and you have to take medication for the rest of your life.
I mean,
no, failed.
What about like high blood pressure?
Or what's the other one? What's that? Cholesterol.
Yeah, stuff like that. Things that you can't see or feel.
But you've just been told. Also, I wonder if people with high cholesterol can go into denial as well then. That's a risky game,
sure
not taking
it. I'm sure anyone could, but sort of any condition, right? That instant.
Yes. Okay. Well, look, I think we're painting denial in a bit of a bad way. And it isn't always a bad thing. If you're dealing with something shocking or distressing, being in denial, we've said this before, can give you a little bit of time and space to gradually, often unconsciously, come to terms with the change. So in the context of HIV, you might stay in denial to some degree about being positive because you don't want to face up to the possibility of having it and the associated stigma. And also it stops you from worrying. So it gives you a little bit of time to come to terms with it, to remain calm. And then when you go and speak to your health professional, you're in a better headspace to do it. So I can totally understand why people do it. And I understand why it's a phase that you might go through in coming to terms with your diagnosis. But as we said, if it goes on for too long, it can be very problematic and it can even be harmful, especially with HIV. If you don't engage with your doctor, if you don't take your medication, you are going to end up in hospital. That is a certainty, isn't it? So how do we overcome it? If you suspect denial might be a coping mechanism for you, and we've both identified that we use it as a coping mechanism ourselves, so we have to think about why we're afraid to face up to the problem.
Oh, I already know when I do it though. I self-analyze like constantly. So do you know what I mean? Like
Is that not exhausting?
No, because understanding yourself, I think, is like, I love it, like literally. So I was putting a task off that I had to do, and I started like cleaning like I've got an ottoman at the end of my bed, and in my head I was laughing at myself, being like, oh my God, look at you. Like it's anything not to start it, because once you start it, if you're bad at it, then you'll be bad at it and you'll know. Whereas if you put it off, you'll never know if you're bad at it or not, right?
Fair enough.
So yeah, go on, sorry.
Okay. We have got to consider the consequences of not dealing with the problem. I do consider the consequences. Well, put it on a list. Try talking to a close friend or a loved one who may be able to offer some honest, more objective perspective, or your very supportive and understanding support worker at your local charity.
And if
that does help.
Before, you can ring up and say, can I have a chat with someone? I don't ever want people to think that you have to like have this big referral service. You can call up and say, this is what's going on for me. Can I chat with someone? Like, it's that simple.
Yeah.
For us, actually, I don't want to say that. And then someone says, I tried to get in touch with another charity, and that's not true. So in terms of TVPS, obviously, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes. And we really appreciate. So when somebody kind of contacts us, or the clinic refer somebody to us, you know, our main objective to start with is not to know everything about that person. It really is just to listen and to show them that, you know, we're reliable and supportive and trustworthy, and kind of build that relationship. And I think that helps so much with moving forward. It's why we have such a high engagement rate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then lastly, we need to work on identifying the distorted thoughts that might be contributing to our anxiety. Oh, there's a lot of self-analysis. I'll write that on my list and then put that in the freezer.
What, must self-analyse?
Yeah, that's a job for next year. I don't have time to analyse at the moment.
That's what you'll be mainly doing in 2025.
Well, no.
Self-analysing.
No, it'll get to 2025 and I'll be like, oh, but there's other things that we need to address first. So that's it done. Just to reassure people, it is more common with HIV than some other long-term conditions to experience denial, and that is linked to the stigma. And also there are more myths around the virus. So there's a lot more to unpick. But if you do think you might be in denial, get in touch with your local HIV charity and they will support you through it. There you go, part 2 complete. Next week, I can't tell you what we're doing, but we do have another denial episode. Oh, I think we're looking at somebody who was in denial. Of course, we're looking at someone in denial. Part of the series otherwise, wouldn't it?
It wouldn't be a summer series otherwise, would it?
What a way to entice people to listen.
There may or may not be something to do with HIV and denial.
Yes. And
Nice.
there'll be plenty of just chatting on. Thanks for listening to the HIV podcast. If you enjoyed our podcast, please like, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.
You can now also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the HIV Podcast for behind-the-scenes insights and video. The HIV Podcast is produced by Thames Valley Positive Support.